Hey imposters, Jessamy here, just dropping in at the top of this episode to let you know about a couple of exciting things happening this week in Imposter Syndrome Club land. So, number one, as you may know, we have our live show, our first birthday celebration coming up this Friday night, the 26th of May at Ringo Bar in Brunswick. We would absolutely love to see you there. There's only a couple of tickets left. So please head to impostersyndromeclub.com or our Instagram at imposterpod to find a link to tickets. The other super exciting thing is that we have just launched our Patreon this week. And what we are really excited about with this is not just the opportunity for us to communicate with you and you to communicate with us, but also the opportunity for you guys to communicate with each other. The whole premise of this podcast is around creating a sense of belonging and a sense of community, and we feel like this is a really great way to do this. There's also, of course, a whole lot of member benefits. You'll get some cool stickers, tote bag, patron-only content, behind-the-scenes footage, subscriber requests, all sorts of cool stuff. We are really excited about seeing you on there and seeing the kind of community and family that we can continue to build. So we hope to see you on Friday if you're in Melbourne, and also online on Patreon. Thanks, imposters. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Imposter Syndrome Club. My name is Jessamy G. I'm joined, as always, by my beautiful co-host, Miss Alice Eady. Hi, Alice.
Hi, Jess.
And today we are joined by a very special guest, Ian Cameron Smith, who's a musician and all-round creative, amazing person. He runs a podcast called Creative Conversations, and we are very happy to have him with us today. Hi, Ian.
Hi, Jess. Hi, Alice.
Hello.
Thanks for having me today.
It's such a pleasure. Now, Ian, we have worded you up that the way that this podcast starts, in most brutal of fashions, is that we ask our guests to read their own bio. So would you indulge us, please?
Yeah, I'll give it a crack. Genius move on your behalf.
We're just outsourcing, really.
It's a kind of an obvious thing to do, I think. But anyway, here we go. Let's get this done. Ian Cameron Smith is an Australian composer of finely crafted instrumental guitar music. His music features everything from modern laid-back jazz and blues flavours right through to delicate classical and acoustic guitar moods. The common thread is the relaxed nature of Ian's composing style, and each track takes you on a unique sonic journey with the focus being rejuvenating entertainment. Enjoy some quality time in the key of calm. That's a mouthful, isn't it?
Beautiful. Yes. Thank you, Ian. And I'm interested to know, so often when we do this, people write their bios for different reasons, like maybe you're a visual artist and you've written it for a specific exhibition or for your website. I'd be interested to know, is that from your website or for a specific project?
Yeah, good question. It's from my website and Spotify profile. And it's funny because, obviously I had to look at it today and go, well, what did I write? Obviously, you can see I can't remember it. It's I very much have to read it. And I thought, yeah, well, that's one part of me. That's my composer part. But there's so many aspects to all of us, and it's almost like I thought, yeah, there's other things you could say about oneself. So, as you say, it does come down to, well, what's the focus I'm talking about in context to this or that, you know what I mean? Because I do video editing and I make music videos of my own music with beautiful imagery, and I love doing that. That's a really satisfying creative process for me as well. So, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, I don't think any bio really sums any of us up properly, does it? But you have to write something. And I think with that one, it was about, with my instrumental music, from day dot, and I started back in 1992, my intent was always to create relaxing music that was interesting. So I didn't want it to be just wafty nonsense. And And because it's guitar based, as you can see, that has over the years helped it to um, not date, and also the acoustic aspect of the music helps it to not date, because it's real playing. It's not a keyboard sample or what have you. So I think that fundamental acoustic quality to the music has helped. But yeah, that I always wanted people. I wanted people to respect the relaxation music. I didn't want them to think, "Oh, I've heard that twice. I'm done with it. I'm bored with it." I wanted them to be able to. There's a lot of layers in there. I wanted them to be able to hear different things on the sixth listen. So there's lots of little Easter egg surprises in there. If people put a good set of headphones on and listen closely, they'll hear tiny little throwaway guitar lines that I play once. And, you know, uh, so yeah, I've always been very fussy about the caliber and the quality, both in production and composition side of things. Hope some of that makes sense.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely. And Ian, I always find it so moving, regardless of what someone makes, when you speak to someone who values and has a deep and abiding respect for their craft. And that's so clear in the way that you speak about it. And especially acknowledging that there are shortcuts you could take and that you choose not to. So I guess my question, and it's kind of a messy one, so take it in whatever direction you wish. But to start off with this idea of, you spoke about relaxation music as like a genre, which I have to confess is something that I'm like, oh, like, firstly, what does that sort of mean? How do you think about relaxation music? And then how did you come to that? And are there other influences? Like, do you draw inspiration from other relaxation music, or are you weaving in other genres from your kind of life and history?
Yeah. I think firstly, it's probably important I'm probably doing myself a disfavor to pigeonhole it as relaxation music. I think the reason I probably, said that is because over the years it's been largely used in the health and well-being industry in that scenario. But as I was saying earlier, I love blues. I love jazz. I use an electric guitar a lot, and I have some blues songs in my collection on Spotify. And funnily enough, one of my most popular songs is a full-on blues track, and it's really funny because it's on a playlist that someone's put together called, I forget the name. It's something like Kick-Ass Rock Blues or something. And it's really funny that one of my most popular tracks is on that, when most of all the other pieces I do are used in things like, health and well-being industry, massage, spas, that whole thing. So that's a really funny little uh, thing that's happened along the way, which I kind of have a wry smile about, actually. So I'll try and wrap up the different threads of your question. I have played guitar. There's not a quick answer to it. I'm sorry, but
Oh, you have all the time you need.
I started playing when I was about 10, and from the start I was self-taught. So I've been completely self-taught in all aspects of music, including music production, except for about 2 or 3 years of really hardcore classical guitar tuition, which was very intense. Like, I was practicing 5 hours a day physically. And I wanted to go from being able to play rock and roll and jazz and all that to being able to play technically really well, so that I could just not only play better, but be able to compose the ideas that I wanted to articulate with a better technique that I couldn't do if I didn't dive deep into that. And it was intense and wonderful and full on. And I thought, thank you. I get the technique, I'll take it away. Mastery never finishes, so I'm not so arrogant as to think I took it and ran completely. It was, I got enough to then take it and apply it to what I wanted to record and compose. So important sliding door along the way, which to this day I look back on and think, if this didn't happen, I wouldn't have gone on to do that much, possibly. And that was a guy called Tony O'Connor, who was massive in the, let's stick with the term, relaxation music industry for now. He was massive in that, and he sold millions of CDs. He started in the 80s, like mid 80s. I started early 90s. And he was a fellow Queenslander. I grew up in Brisbane. He lived on the Sunshine Coast. And through a friend who was a great guitar player and introduced me to classical guitar, through him, he introduced me to Tony O'Connor. And it was like, wow, you mean to say you're completely self-published and you're able to release all this music on your own label and sell millions? It was like, you're not signed to a mainstream record label or anything. And I was just gobsmacked that this was even possible. I knew that the instrumental music industry was growing quickly. And, in the early days, it was labeled new age music. That seemed to be the term. That I don't think there's many new age music artists who like that term. But anyway, it emerged and it grew quite rapidly. And there were just a few characters who were nailing it and just really hitting incredible success. And he was one of them. Got to know him. He recorded my first album. Was a massive learning curve, and it was, in my mind, it was so rough. I re-recorded it years later to bring it up to an acceptable standard. But the second album I composed, I was ready to start recording it. Started recording it in Sydney, and it was going really badly. And I actually rang him out of desperation, and I said, "It's acoustic guitar-based album. I'm not getting the results in the recordings by the studio I was paying a lot of money to record. It's not sounding like it needs to sound." I was almost in tears talking to him with the desperation. What do I do? And to my absolute astonishment, he said, "I've actually just finished an album. Come up and I'll produce it." And I was like,
Wow.
I just, I just fell on the floor for a while, and I just thought, seriously? I couldn't believe he'd said it. So he lived in the hinterland of the Sunshine Coast, just awesome spot up in the Mullaney area. Beautiful studio, state of the art. I was just like, I said, I can die now, after doing that album with him. I said, if I do nothing else, that's enough for me. It was just such a phenomenal experience on so many levels, including the masterclass in production, mixing, the whole process, and just his generosity, and so that was a real pivot point for me, and combining that bit of incredible fortune and good luck with an insatiable drive. I just can't believe. I think back on it and think I was just driven like a madman, which is it's kind of weird, isn't it? It's such cruisy music, what I do, but the internal feeling that was burning inside me was just intensely driven. So it was a real juxtaposition of what I felt inside and what you heard when you pressed play on the CD player.
God, that's so interesting. I love that.
And the drive that you speak of, Ian, is that the drive to create or the drive to like build your reputation, business, essentially, I guess you would call it, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, it's definitely both, and probably even more than just two. It's a myriad of things. I really felt that I had something. I could almost feel the potential that I had. Like with the first two albums, I achieved what I achieved with them, and it was like that showed me that this burning, intense feeling to create and compose is valid. Like I thought, yeah, I can do this, and I just thought, but the best is yet to come. And if you speak to most artists, especially musicians, and you say, well, what's your favorite album? Most of them would probably say, well, the next one, because you're perfecting it. You're perfecting your craft the whole time. And I've spoken to people on my Creative Conversations podcast, and I've spoken to a couple of virtuoso musicians on there, and we've talked about the nuance of mastery. I'm not for one second applying virtuosity to me. It was him, um, Piers Adams, world's best recorder player, etc. Anyway, we were talking about mastery, and he just said the nuances that he's now exploring with his mastery are just so esoteric, and it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. So anyway, I just kind of felt that the next album would always be better. I hoped it would be better, and it's just striving for just improvement on all levels: playing, composition, production, the mixing, and you just so gradually realize things. I'm sure it's probably the same with most forms of art and creativity, but again, especially with music, there can be so much intricacy to it. Not sure how far off the question I've wandered there. Pull me back. Was there an aspect of it I missed?
Can I build it? Can I come in and just build on that? Also, Ian, we mention this almost every podcast, but this is built on a series of tangents. So, do not stress. That's just that. This will be meandering at best.
Yeah. Cool.
So I was wondering. So Jessamy and I both work also in a creative field. We both work in illustration, and I think that obviously all art, there exists this tension between your own relationship with expression and craft, and also the reality of an audience. And I think for us, we can kind of kid ourselves a bit more. Like, I think people that draw can pretend that we draw for ourselves. It's usually not true. Like, we draw because we want to show it to someone and we want them to tell us that we're special and talented and
good job.
Yeah,
gold star.
We want gold star. Yeah. But we can kind of, for the purposes of the process, you can kid yourself a bit more. I think in the visual arts, that you're expressing your expression and it's private, and then you only kind of share it later, and that's almost an afterthought. I think with music, it kind of presupposes an ear, a receiving ear on the other side of it. So how do you think about the relationship? Because you're the first descriptor you used was composer, right? Like, as opposed to performer. And a lot of your craft sounds like the production and actually creating a recorded piece of music is really important to you. So what is that relationship between, how do you think about audience and craft and how those are kind of interwoven?
Awesome question. Just a little side tangent. I just want to acknowledge how amazing I think you two are, and people like yourselves who can illustrate live. It just blows my mind. That's just a little aside.
Thank you. We got our gold star.
Yeah. I've always been in total awe of it. Not being able to do that at all makes me even more appreciative of it. So you're both rock stars. So that's a really great question. There's one of the things I sort of thought a lot about early on when I started doing this was that it's ridiculous to try and contrive something for an audience, whatever that audience is, whether it's someone having a massage in a spa, or someone on the bus going to work and just trying to stay calm for whatever reason, or just chilling out. I thought, if I, for 1 minute, start to think I can sit down and compose something for that purpose specifically, I'm going to run into trouble. The only authentic way I can come at this is to create what just comes through me and what I've just intuit and what I intuitively feel to build throughout the composing of that piece of music. So I think it's really important to not not try and create to any specific audience. I think that's really foreign to me. I don't know if I could even do that. So I had to adopt an attitude really early on that if other people like what comes out of me, then that's a real bonus, an absolute bonus. I cannot do it for anyone else but myself. I just have to focus in the moment on what I'm doing, and if there's an audience at the end of this process, then I will be grateful beyond words. And then when I was grateful beyond words. It's a phenomenal experience. And I often speak about this magical feeling of when it comes full circle. And so the reason I started Creative Conversations podcast was because, and I'm so passionate about this, when I compose, when I'm recording, because I record as I create. So I can't read music. So I have to record it as I go. So I'm layering, from the start through to the end. There's no notation or oh yeah, I'll remember that and remember it later, because I will forget. So I have to just get it down. And I mean, gosh, over the years, I think I'm up to about 94 pieces of music, and most of them I would have to go back and remember how to play the guitar parts, because I record it and then I record, there might be 5 different guitar parts in a song, and I definitely can't remember all of the songs, but most of the time, it might start. Well, half the songs start with me just playing guitar and searching for nice new chords and just a nice sound, and I go, oh, bing, there's an idea, and I go, oh, quick, get that down, and then the rest of the song kind of layers in and lands in on top of that, and I adore that process. But the feeling that I feel when I'm composing and I'm in the flow state and I'm in the zone, and I can hardly keep up with the excitement of, I can hear this and I can hear that, and that needs a pad of strings there, and how do I get something that goes wop 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 wop, and it's just it's firing off. It's just so many ideas coming in. You think, if the listener can sort of feel a fraction of the buzz that I feel in that creative process, then that would just be so amazing and so fun. And then when people have written to me and said, oh, I felt this when I heard that, it's just such an incredible full circle feeling that, it's come through me, then out to them, they've listened to it, come through them, and they fed it back to me, and it's this beautiful loop, So again, I don't know if I answered that question.
It's so gorgeous. And I can see your face lighting up talking about it. And conversely, Ian, like you say, you're amazed by what we do. I am so amazed by musicians because I do not have a musical bone in my body. So it's all like magic to me. Yeah. Like how you could picture that and bring it into being, to me, just feels like an incredible magic trick.
Thank you.
I'm interested in the idea of audience and saying like you cannot try to compose for a specific audience. But I imagine at some point when you did find that audience in that sort of, health, yoga, relaxation space, was there any moment where it became seductive because now you're aware of who they are to change things slightly and to try and pander to that audience, whether it was conscious or subconscious?
I don't think I'm smart enough to do that.
Well, that's a
Great
gift.
answer.
Yeah. I'm neither smart enough or clever enough. You know what? It was like, okay, the first 2 albums are getting some response. Third album, bit more response. Fourth album went boom, went up like it sort of hit some compound curve on all levels. My Heart and Soul album, it was like I brought session players in for saxophone, flute, bit of vocal harmony. They were phenomenal, and some little plateau. I feel like I got to some particular plateau then, and it was like, okay, well, look, this is hitting a trajectory I'm kind of really grateful and satisfied with. And then that was well received. That was received the best. And I thought, well, I'm still just creating what is coming naturally. I haven't yet started to contrive something for the reasons I mentioned earlier. I don't know how to anyway. And it was going up. So I thought, well, just keep doing it for me. Like I'm the best barometer for if something's strong enough, because I'm fussy with I'm my biggest self-critic. And I heard Rick Rubin saying, I hope I can remember this essence of this, world famous producer, super dude, wonderful dude. And someone said something to him. So the essence of it was, you know, what do you do if it's if you hear something later that isn't quite right, and you know what's the process around that? And he said something to the effect of, well, it wouldn't be out there because I would have got it right in the first place, and if I didn't, it's because I was doing everything in my ability at that time. I didn't have capacity beyond where I was at that point. So you got to be happy. You got to be happy with that. And that Tony O'Connor musician who basically saved my butt in the early days, he said to me, "Never go back. Don't go back. Move forward and keep progressing and moving forward with it all." And that was really important advice.
It's
So no, I didn't. I have seen people pander to that, Jess, though, within my sort of broad genre, and I've seen them nail it, and I've thought, what a load of shit that I'm listening to, and they have done so well, and I go, well, good on you. A lot of people love that. And so, you know, music is subjective, and it's like, so it's valid. For my personal taste, it's like, come on, that's just so contrived. But if you're comfortable doing that, then, you know, good for you.
I
Go
suppose in a way, like it's a different game that they're playing, and once you separate what they are doing is actually just it's not the same genre. They're playing a different game and they're excelling at their game, and it's just not the game that you want to play. It kind of becomes easier to respect it for what it is. I guess it's a different kind of hustle. But
yeah, I mean, it's slightly arrogant of me to say it sounds shit, obviously, but
oh, you're allowed.
I think it's. I think
it's a safe place.
I think we're allowed to recognise when something's not coming from the heart, aren't we?
Exactly, and it's taste. You know, you're allowed taste as well. They can think as well what they want. That's fine.
Yeah, and you know, and the fair stance is that, look, if people love it, that's great. That's nothing else matters. But do you know what? I think for me personally, as well as having just a burning desire to, I think what it was a burning desire to reach the potential I felt that was inside. That's what it was. I didn't want to die wondering, could I do that? Could I produce what I was feeling? And the incredible passion that I was feeling inside, I wanted to musicalize it. I wanted to get that out in sound. And so, sorry,
that's right.
Lost the tangent.
It's such an interesting thing, around potential, because I think so many people actually run in the opposite direction from fulfilling potential, because if you don't try, did it come back to you?
I remembered it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. But married with that was quite a self-conscious feeling that I would feel, I knew that I would feel really embarrassed, music, like as a composer, if something wasn't the absolute, if I hadn't taken any composition I did to the nth degree of performance and production. And as a side note, if you're doing instrumental music, your production has to be pretty solid, because you're not relying on a sweet vocal or a clever or an insightful lyric. It's purely the mood, and the whole, feeling of it is purely based on, instrumental music, and it has to nail it on a production level. So I think, coupled with that burning desire that was always there, was I'd be incredibly embarrassed to produce something that someone could see I'd taken a shortcut with. I'd feel shit about myself, I just thought, nah, you gotta, like, if you're going to release something, it's got to be at least be the best you're capable of that time.
Yeah.
And you know that hopefully you're going to do better as you progress your craft. But that's cool too, because the first few albums sound nothing like, well, not nothing like, they're very different style to what I do now. But you would hope to expect that. I was speaking with an artist I've got an interview going up pretty soon, an artist called John Adams, Irish artist, and he said, these galleries and curators, they expect their artists to keep painting the same way so people can recognize that that's that artist. He says, I do a completely different series every time he sits down to do a series of paintings, completely different. And he said he just finds that so bizarre that people don't just naturally evolve onto the next thing. And if evolving on is just honing your mastery of that style, that's great, because you're nuancing that and getting better at that. But I think for a lot of artists, it's kind of healthy to explore different tangents altogether.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with music, because I think there's that thing of, like, say you've got your favorite band.
I was just thinking that, like, the new Arctic Monkeys sucks.
Yeah, there's this thing that we feel, some sort, like we're owed something from that artist to do the thing that we loved before. But the way that they got to making the thing that we love is by a series of evolution, right? And they have to continue to evolve in creating their art. But for some reason, there's this like, their new album sucks, I like their old stuff thing that seems to be like the cool thing to do,
Yeah. That's a really good point, Jess. It makes me think of the fact that, there's a handful of albums. You know how with Spotify now and whatever platform you listen on, you know how you're almost frozen into, what the hell should I play now today, because I've got the world's supply of music in my phone. What do I want to listen to? And I often end up defaulting to my old favorites, and there'll be a half a dozen albums that I must have played 1 trillion times, because they just continue to work, satisfying an auditory need. And other more recent albums of that same artist, you just think, it's not a patch on it, and you think, what happened? What went wrong? I've had that. I've had people say that to me about. They say, I just don't know why you're doing that. I wish you'd do more of that. And you go, well, okay, we'll just stick to the early stuff then that you
Yeah.
Yeah,
love.
just
Like,
listen to that.
I
Yeah.
love that you love that, and I'm sorry that you don't love this, but I'm so yeah. You just got to stay authentic to what's coming through you at the time, and but that's art, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're channeling something, and
And so much of it is based on the moment you're in, and those needs change. I mean, for me, I'm incredibly guilty of reverting to my old faithfuls on Spotify. And I had this like one of the most incredible gifts I was given the other day was my partner, who he's a self-taught musician as well, loves music and is so exploratory and diverse. And he put together a playlist of about 260 songs that I would love based on kind of like what we've listened to together, what I've enjoyed, and then kind of expanding and stretching that. And I've just been listening to it, but I haven't opened it. Like, I don't look at what's on the playlist. I just put it on, and it's like this Russian roulette of musical surprises. It's so wonderful when the algorithm, because it's not the Spotify algorithm that's just repeating what I've already plugged into it. It's got this like expansiveness to it. And I suppose I'm also more open to it because it's been made by a human and it's been made by someone I love. So I'm kind of more flexible with it. But yeah, it kind of, to your point, like, it's really made me aware as well that I, on one hand, operate as a creative and am asking a lot of people to come on that journey with me. But in other parts of my life, I do also, sometimes I'm not engaging with other people's work in that way, right? Sometimes I'm being more safe or looking for comfort instead of a challenge. And I suppose all of us, it depends, we self-medicate with music a lot, and what we need changes.
I think, spot on. I reckon that happens a lot. I think a lot of us probably, default to what we're familiar with. We know it works for us. I love it when people do what your partner did for you with that playlist. I love that. And, discovering just gold in new artists.
It felt like a mixtape. I was like, this is so retro. My boyfriend made me a mixtape.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, there's just, if you stop to think for a second, just the volume of music that's out there now, I mean, it must be just extrapolating the numbers of songs that are hitting the likes of Apple Music and Spotify, etc., on a daily basis, be quite mind-blowing. I mean, if I stop to think about it, I think, how do I get any streams at all? Competing with the sheer volume of what's out there. But it's always worth having a bit of an explore, though, isn't it? I mean, the AI is kind of useful in helping us along discovering some new stuff at times. Sometimes it's annoying, but other times it does reveal some gems. I think it's best when, like you said, when a human says, "Oh, I think you'd really dig this particular stuff." That's always better. But yeah.
Are you? I'm looking at Jess. I'm like, is it your turn or my turn? So, kind of zooming out in and looping back to the bio. Obviously, we're discussing the things. A bio is around what you choose to put in, but it's equally around what you choose to leave out. And something that is a definite pattern with all of these creative, interesting humans that we've chatted to on the podcast is that often the thing we're speaking about is one of many things that is happening in their world. And often creative production is part of an ecosystem, and we have different relationships to the different nodes. So could you maybe, having looked at your creative process and your music, sort of zooming out a bit and discussing what it means to you to live a creative life and what the other pieces you have are that enable you to wake up and make your art every day?
Yeah. That's a brilliant question because, it's those other elements that kind of make dipping into the creative process of, in my case, doing music. If the other aspects are in a good place, it makes dipping into the composing the music that much better, doesn't it? Or whatever it might be. So for me, the other kind of important elements are, well, I do a lot of video editing. So I find the video editing process is it's a very similar uh, process to creating music. You're making creative decisions. You're not trying not to be, you're trying to be intuitive about editing decisions and not take any longer than you need to, and trusting your intuition on edits and stuff, and just it's a wonderful creative process. So I do a lot of that. I'm a dad. I have a teenage son, and anyone with kids knows that if you might want to do X, Y, Z, and you think your day ahead might include X, Y, Z, but no, it doesn't. And actually, I've got to take you to football training, which I completely forgot about, and I've got to pick you up from school, and I've got to buy you some new socks, and you go, oh, okay, no music today. I forgot all about that other stuff. And just trying to be a decent parent and dancing that dance. And I love sport. I love there's a lot of creativity in sport, particularly soccer, as we call it here. I really appreciate the mastery of a sport, at an elite level. I do something called knowledge working a fair bit, or I have done over the years, which is supporting corporate strategy workshops, which includes a lot of live scribing, which you two rock stars are amazing at. And it just encompasses such a broad skill set, it kind of almost, what's the saying? Master of none, but you know a lot about a whole heap of different things.
Yeah.
That's been really a pretty cool balance, actually, to my creative compositional world. It's going off and doing that, getting the pleasure of working with people far more intelligent than myself, and listening to their insights about life, and it's been really healthy to come out, because my personality would be very happy to be a hermit and to never come out of the studio, which I did do for many, many years. And so it was a bit of a shock when I came out. But it is healthy to come out and have those other interactions. And then when I go back into the studio, I don't know, maybe there's a bit more to draw on, or you've had some healthy space and time away from, that. So I guess it comes down to balance, doesn't it? Life is all about a balance of so many things, whether it be health and dietary balance, through to, well, every aspect of life is about balance. I'm very passionate about surfing. I'm lucky enough to live at the beach in Sydney, and I surf. My son is a mad surfer as well, which keeps me going, and him getting heavily into it has forced me to keep some level of fitness going so I can do it. But being out in the surf is an incredible thing. A lot of reflection time. You're in a very powerful element, so you're reminded of your place in the world and your little spot in the world, and it can be quite humbling if a massive wave comes through and you've got the courage to catch it, and sometimes you get it on the head and you get wiped out, and that's quite humbling. And other times you get a wave that the buzz goes for days on some level. It kind of peters off really slowly. So surfing has inspired a lot of my recent music. I did a track called Flow Motion, which is completely dedicated to all the kind of feelings I feel in the sea. And it was a track that I really tried. I really tried hard to out what we were saying earlier about contriving and really trying to do something. I really tried on that to try and capture the fluidity of just that whole thing. So when anyone listens to that track, and the video I made to go with it sort of shows that explicitly, but that was definitely me trying to really capture a specific essence of something. And look, also having all of us lived through the last few years, it's just, I just feel a bit more spiritually connected generally to that aspect of life. I think if we haven't reflected on the deeper meanings of why we're actually on the planet in the last few years, then I don't know what's going to jolt you out to reflect a bit more deeply. So I've done a lot of that, and that's I think that's a important thing to kind of tap into, and that's a very personal kind of thing for everyone. That we all have our personal way of doing that.
Yeah.
But again, creativity is a for me. I've always felt that music, for me personally, is the closest thing we have to spirit, because it's kind of a to absorb it or to listen to it. It's just sound waves. It's coming through the air. It's invisible, so it has a lot of and it's profoundly moving in a really immediate way. And obviously a lot of artwork can make people feel that way as well. But I've always felt that something. I've always been very grateful to be able to do music because of that kind of link to spirit. And I've always I've always hoped that my music makes I always hoped I've been able to imprint those feelings somehow into the music. Sounds a bit esoteric, but I feel when it comes full circle, like what we were talking about before, when that happens, I feel like the imprinting has successfully happened on some level. So that's the other, intentful thing that I try to make sure, or I like to be making sure I'm feeling that when I'm in the composing process, so that hopefully other people feel that when they listen to it.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a really long answer, wasn't it?
It's brilliant. That's what we're here. It's literally what we're here for, Ian.
There's so many aspects.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And Dan, my husband Dan, who Ian, describes music as divine, and I think that's
Yes.
that's so much at the heart of it. There's a few sort of threads coming around this sort of like circular motion of things from creation to audience, but also I think a really big one that's come up quite a lot on this podcast with creative people in all different sorts of fields is that balance between inputs and outputs. So you have to be out surfing, doing stuff out in the world, talking to people you wouldn't normally talk to get the inputs to be able to create the outputs, like you were saying, having a piece of music that's trying to capture the feeling of surfing. You don't get to have that without the inputs. And I think people can get I say people like I'm not part of this. People, including myself, you can get lost in the sense that like, oh, I'm not a proper artist or musician if I'm not super regimented and do it like this. But you have to, even like for a lot of people, that's having a part-time job or having another thing where you are getting inputs from the world to create your outputs, and it in no way takes anything away from your validity. In fact, it adds to it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I remember I did my music full time from about 92 to about 2005. Did nothing else, and then from what happened, I kind of survived off CD sales and did a lot of live trade shows and things, selling to the specific industries that I knew would value the music. And then when MP3 technology came out, it disrupted that completely. So I had to look for, well, what else can I do to bring in money alongside the music, And I remember at first I felt a bit kind of quite sad and a little bit defeated that had come to pass. But by going out into the world and not being a hermit quite so much, I was getting new and fresh inputs, as you said, and it was healthy in other ways. Just having all sorts of inputs from other people and other aspects of life. So that was a healthy thing. I think maybe the ego side of me just wanted to just do music. Am I a proper musician if I'm doing other things as well?
Oh my God, this is so relatable.
Yeah. And so I think I battled with that for a long time, and then became a parent in that time as well. So that all converged. And it's like, well, you've got to support a little person now as well. So don't be too self-indulgent of thinking this and that. Just get out there and earn some money.
Yeah.
You got another mouth to feed and a child to raise. So, that sorts you out pretty quick, as most parents will attest to as well.
I think it can be such a gift having that sort of perspective. And it was what I was kind of hoping for when I was asking you about the things that weren't in the bio, because it is just it's something that I've struggled with. So it was a completely selfish question, but it was I think and it was something Jess said earlier as well about like us seeing the shiny polished exteriors of other people who are doing it, and it's like, my God, I'm not a real artist because I have a day job or whatever. And I mean, for me, going back to uni and doing a master's in fine art, like the biggest takeaway from that was nothing that anyone taught me about art. It's like your art gets better, make more art, your art will get better or not, I guess. But that's kind of it. Yeah. Like the biggest takeaway was just being in a space with 20 other adult human beings who are artists and realizing that 100% of them have other streams of revenue, other incomes, other jobs. And it's, I mean, it sounds so obvious to say it now, but it's like no one tells you this because no one is posting on their Instagram a picture of the call center that they go and work at 4 times a week. They're sharing a picture of their exhibition coming up and their studio and all the things that you feel like you should be doing and that you're fucking up because you're not doing full time. So it's so interesting to hear that as well in your industry.
If there was a graphical representation of what you just said of, well, let's use musicians as an example. If the percentage of musicians who are just doing that and nothing else, it's probably a pretty small dot on a bloody big circle. In reality, isn't it? I'm sure that'd be an interesting graphic to see.
If only we knew people who could draw a graphic.
I know.
Should we commit to that? That'll be in the show notes, you guys. Someone.
It's just 2 circles. I feel like we can handle it.
We can pull this off.
It's a fresh input.
Yes, that's it.
I had a thought to that where, it doesn't matter how many other things, it doesn't matter what different things we're doing. I think what I've come to realize is when I am in the studio, just be 100% in the right mindset, and just let park the ego at the door, go in with as an open channel, and know where you go, and just feel it. And just be 100% present and that might just give me a better chance of doing something half decent,
Yeah.
So in other words, it doesn't matter. It's pointless whatever we think about ourselves in relation to the fact that we're not doing it full time, or we're doing it 20% of the time. Even if it's 2% of the time, when you're in there for that 2%, just be completely present and give it your all. And just be present wherever you are, whatever aspect of your life you're at, whether it's, live scribing in front of 500 people, just be completely present. Or if you're, trying to catch a bomb wave, just, you got to be present or you get it on the head. So,
Yeah.
that's, I feel like I cut you off a bit there.
No.
Alice.
It actually was pretty much perfectly aligned to what I was going to ask Ian, which was around you mentioning, I've got this image in my mind of the kind of clips of you saying you don't write music notation, so you're going to get an idea, you'll record it on your phone or whatever, and that becomes your archive of ideas. There's that. Then there's something hazy in the middle called process. And then there's like a finished song. And I was going to ask about that in between step. And I think that is what you were saying around that presence. Because I was like, how does the notes, how do those fragments of ideas become a finished song?
Yeah, because, I can freak myself out if I overthink it. And I think, like I released a single, one of my more recent singles, and it had the bed of the song was really hard to play, and so I avoided recording it for months. I'd composed it like a year ago, and I thought, you coward, just get in there and play it. Like, just go for it. Just play it until you get it right. And it was like, you just can't overthink it as well, you just really got to get out of the way. I think I could have freaked myself out continually along the path of composing any track I've ever composed, because it's not a thinking process. It's a intuitive process. It's a get out the way process. It's nothing to do with your mind. It's a feeling, intuitive process. And I think over the years it's become a habit to be able to slip into the flow state quicker, and to the point now where it's just a divine, as Dan says, it's a divine place to dwell. And yes, I would love to do nothing else, but there are other fringe benefits of going out in the world and getting some fresh inputs for your next output. So one other important thing that came to mind connected with all this was I interviewed Andy Bull as my first podcast, and, wonderful pop musician, and, way more than just pop, but, he's well known for that. Awesome singer, great writer, just all-round legend. And we had this great conversation about how a piece of music, it just has to gestate, it has to develop for as long as it needs. If it needs X amount of time, it needs X amount of time. You can't rush it, and you can't be impatient. It really demands that you have patience and you recognize when it's not ready, and that you have the patience to do what you have to do to make it ready for release, And, that's that, going for that surf, or Andy going and having some life with his kids or doing whatever he does, and coming back and listening with fresh ears to the mix he did for 12 hours the day before. And he goes, oh, yeah, there's some crucial things I've got to change there, that I was a bit anaesthetized to it. Like I'd numbed myself, but I went out and had some fresh inputs elsewhere, and I've come back, and all of a sudden I'm hearing problems. I'm hearing things that could be better, and I completely related to that aspect of our conversation, especially because you just you can't rush it. Anything that I've ever rushed has never been as good as it could have been.
On the flip side to that, so there's a patience involved in knowing when something's cooked or waiting till it's cooked. How do you balance that and not overcooking it and never finishing anything, which is a problem I
have? Yeah, because you and I have talked, and our sort of that knowledge worker industry, we've talked a lot over the years about the 80-20 rule, haven't we? Because we don't have time for some kind of shiny ultra perfection. We have time for what's right. What we have time for what is the absolute best we can do with the time that we're given.
Yes.
And so that's taught me, that's been a aspect of my life that's taught me, 80% done is what do they say? Done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's something like that, isn't it? Done is better than perfect, because sometimes you just need an outcome. So it is a bit contradictory. I think with musically, 80% for me is not good enough.
Yeah.
It has to be the best I'm capable of. As I said before, down the track I might become capable of doing better, but now I'm not, and that's okay. Like if your future self is capable, that's a different matter. But that's all I can do today. But no, with music, because see, it's there for forever, right?
Yeah.
So I have to cook it to 100%.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? Like it's this balance between, so you've got this like incredible drive to create and also an incredible commitment to quality. And I imagine they could not butt up against each other, but you know what I mean? Like it has to, you want it to be the best quality it could possibly be, but you also have a lot of outputs to output.
I having said that, I've had quite a few pieces where I know that I'm just not quite, it's not quite perfect how I would prefer it to sound, but I also know that I don't know how to solve this, and I go, okay, just accept it, and and then I'll release it and I'll listen back and I go, yeah, I can still hear the problem, but I didn't know how to fix it. And I did have to I had to reach a point of acceptance with that. So that is a uncomfortable, familiar feeling I've had a bit too often. But you got to recognize. I've had to recognize where I have to stop, because I just don't know how to fix it. And you know what? No one else is going to listen as critically as I do either. It's ridiculously critical. Ridiculous. Like no one's even going to remotely hear that problem.
It's a hard thing to remember, because all you see is those tiny, that line out of place, or that whatever that problem was that became unsolvable. But now all you see is an unsolved problem every time you look at that drawing or listen to that piece of music.
Yeah. And then someone comes up and says, Jess, that is mind-blowing. You're such a genius, like that. And you're going, oh, okay, whatever.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think like part of it is also allowing someone to enjoy your art and your output on their terms. And
Totally.
I know for the first few years of live drawing, the second anyone would come and be like, whoa, that's awesome. Like the inherent, like you're trained into this humility and this self-effacing where all I do is immediately point out all the mistakes. Be like, I almost felt like it was like my moral responsibility to educate this person as to why actually I'm like a bit shit. And now I just bite my tongue. I'm like, you know what? Like I can see the 5,000 fuck ups, but like you see what you want to see, and that's your own business. Like it's not for me to manage that experience.
That is an awesome realization to come to, Alice, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's still, I feel like I physically have to bite my tongue doing it. And I think there is like a self-protective mechanism where, we believe like if we call our mistakes out publicly first, we like beat everyone else to it. So you're kind of like, but I know this. Like I know that this sucks. I know that, and so you can't hurt me because like I already hurt myself.
Yeah. I can relate to that. In fact, it kind of reminds me of the whole thing that I'm sure we're all guilty of around the 99 mind-blowingly kind bits of feedback and the one awful bit of feedback. And I'm shit.
I've had a very recent experience with this, Ian. Yeah.
I had a recent experience of it, and it's like, Ian, stop thinking about it. Stop it.
Yeah.
It's like everyone else loved it, and this one person wanted me to stick to my other style, and it's like, and I'm going, in my head, I'm going, dude, but I'm trying to evolve, and, it's not all about doing that all the time, and it's like, stop thinking about it. Stop thinking about it. It's like we give, it takes a lot of practice, or whatever the right word is, to not give that too much energy and too much power. And I think we're all probably at different stages of trying to deal with that one. I'm certainly trying to deal with that quite often.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. And look, it's like so much of it is just biological. Like we have a negativity bias for evolutionary reasons. And I think that's been helpful to me to think of it in those terms. Like I know from a logical perspective, yes, there were 99 nice things and one bad thing. And I know because of this negativity bias that I'm going to hone in on that, which is all comforting. But unfortunately, it doesn't make it feel any less shit to be aware of it.
Yeah.
Although I love that you said, and you were like, it takes a lot of, and you said practice or whatever the word is. And I love that the word you chose was practice, because I think it demystifies that in a way that I tend to think of it as like, well, it takes a lot of, strength, talent, resilience. Like I kind of put these pedestal words up there that I'm like, oh my God, well, I'm not this emotional athlete. I don't have that. I guess it's just, I'm going to ruminate on this forever. And I love that you just said, it takes practice, and practice is a thing that all of us can do. I found that very heartening.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, nice.
Well, we're probably just coming to time to start to wind up, Ian. But I've got a notepad full of about 16 different questions that I could possibly ask you. Oh yeah. There's no pictures, unfortunately, but I think a nice place to finish up might be around talking about presence, because I think, one of the reasons that I love the live drawing element of my job is because you have to be present. Like you literally can't do the job without it. But in situations where you don't have the external forces of an audience, a time frame where you have to be present, when it's just me sitting down to work in my studio, you sitting down to compose. And you mentioned that you've gotten better at sort of like tapping into that flow state. Are there any particular practices or rituals that you use?
That's what I wanted to ask. We should start a podcast.
We should start a podcast together. That would be such a good idea.
Yes, I'm so glad you asked that. Sorry. Over to you, Ian.
So are there any particular rituals that help me?
Yeah, any practices or processes that you use to be present when you don't have the external forces, like a live performance that, or surfing where, you're going to hurt yourself or whatever.
Yeah. So again, it's a practice, and there are a couple of aspects to this. I think the process of composing music is so much fun, that it's quite it's somewhat easy to slip into the flow state because of just the nature of it. I was listening to you, Jess, saying something recently about feeling guilty. I think you were saying this about you feeling guilty if you're there and not doing that, and then you go over there and then you feel guilty you're not back where you were, and this like never being fully present in either places.
Yes.
And I thought that's a really, really great sort of thing to hone in on, and it's a great realization. I thought it got me thinking, and it's it's obviously popped up in my mind again now, what you said, because I think it's that practice thing of just going, look, I'm here now, I'm in the studio. Just honor this moment, and this moment deserves my presence. It deserves me to be present. it deserves me to leave my thoughts about other aspects of my life at the door. It actually, I think if we can begin to master that, then it means we become more efficient, doesn't it? So we're more efficient. The more present we are with any aspect of our life, then the more efficient all our thought processes are. And it all comes down to the mind anyway. The thing I'm thinking more and more about these days is that it's quite funny really, but it kind of boils down to, it's just a choice. So I'm here now. I have the choice to be completely present, or I also have the choice to worry about the fact that I need some milk for tonight, and I really just want to get that out of the way and buy it in case I forget later. And whatever it is, like just making that choice to be completely present. Any mind thinking process is a choice, whether it, like the choice to think of that one bad comment versus the 99 good ones, is a choice. So I think the short answer is just practicing, making the choice to be completely present. Doing music is very meditative for me. The whole process of recording and creating is very meditative, unless I have a technical hitch. That's very not meditative. Because all I want to do is get these guitars down, and it's like, why isn't that mic working?
Yeah.
That's very un-Zen, I can tell you. So, but once you're in the zone and you've ironed out any technical wrinkles, it's such a beautiful meditative process, generally speaking. Not all the time, but that, I can feel really energized by it. So I suppose having done it for so long, I guess it's second nature that I know that that's a bit of that's a nice fringe benefit that will come from doing it. Equally, I can be so spaced out that I make no sense to anyone, especially my family. They talk to me and I go, "What?" And you didn't hear a word of that, did you? Sorry, what? I'm so spaced out. I can be so spaced out when I've had a really potent session. I don't know if that's like that for you both with your artwork, but I can get really spaced out in a really lovely way by being that focused and concentrated on it.
It sounds delightful. I don't get that so much, actually, personally, but I wish I did.
No, it could be a music thing.
Yeah, maybe.
But I don't feel like there's a specific ritualistic thing. I think it's an intention, Jess, mainly.
Yeah.
It's an intention. It's like, look, it's probably my personality is, if I set my mind to something, I'll do it, and I just make sure I do it. So whatever it is, So I think that's been really helpful for me. It's like I can be working amongst clutter and just place looks like a tip. It's like I don't even care about it. Like I'm not even seeing that. I'm just in the zone, and away I go. So, but I guess and then other times I like it to feel nice and shiny and all that. So I think it depends how desperate I am to get the ideas out. And sometimes they're just piling up. It's like, get them out, get them down before you lose them.
I think that bringing the simplicity of just thinking of it as a choice is so impactful for me, because it's so easy to forget that, and you get worrying now about the fact that I have to get milk is not going to get me the milk any faster.
No.
You know what I mean? I can write that down on a Post-it and then continue, but just to remember with all of the busyness and to-do lists and external forces that actually you do have a choice in any given moment to be present, and that's just a choice that you can take.
Yeah. It's helping me a lot lately. I'm trying to remember it.
Ian, well, thank you for making the choice to speak to us today and for being so present and just really thoughtful with all of your answers, and it was really rich, and it's always so satisfying. I love that we get an hour out in the midst of a day of deadlines and admin and life to just unpack what it means to be a human in the world and how to think about making things that didn't exist before. So thank you very much.
My absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute treat speaking with you both. I really appreciate it. Fantastic questions, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to sort of talk about these things. It's been an absolute treat for me too.
Thanks,
and
Ian.
hopefully we'll get you on to Creative Conversations. We'll have a chat real soon too.
Love to.
Yeah, can't wait. That'll be awesome.
Thank you so much, Ian.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
All the best.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Imposter Syndrome Club. Please follow us wherever you find your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra kind, rate and review. Or if you got any insights or value from this, share with a friend.
You can also find us on Instagram at imposterpod or online at impostersyndromeclub.com.